So SBF has headed to court, entered a plea of not guilty. And what does this mean? Well, we're going to take a look into the past in where something similar, but not to this extent, has happened before. And what are the likely chances that SBF, well, walks away with a slap on the wrist? All that and more in this video. So be sure to subscribe, turn that notification bell on so you know when we go live or upload our latest video. And let's get into this one. So if you haven't already seen this little clip, these are the scenes of SBF turning up to a courtroom in Manhattan to, like I said, put that plea forward of not guilty. Now, taking a look, it's absolutely insane. The scrum, it is like a major celebrity trying to get into it. Now, there is some pretty angry people that are clearly not happy with exactly what happened. Is this, you can see this guy at the back, he's just absolutely not having a great time whatsoever. But absolute chaos as Sam Bankman-Fried enters court to give that plea of not guilty. Now, this is a little bit of a tinfoil hat video, so please bear with me. But why on earth would he go, given everything we know, the stacked evidence against him, the fact that both Caroline Ellison and Gary Wang have said, yes, we are guilty of securities fraud, as amongst other things? Why would SBF go in there and say no? Well, ultimately, you can change your plea. So SBF can go in there with a plea of not guilty and ultimately then see where this stacks up. Now, you could argue that there is over $70 million being donated to political parties. Could that sway a decision? Could that mean he gets favoritism from some of these? We will never know. But ultimately, there is a reason he's gone in there and agreed to basically give a not guilty plea. Now, more importantly, he's already got two people, Caroline and Gary Wang, that have said, yes, we are guilty. Is this just a play from Sam Bankman-Fried to put more ownership on to Alameda, and in particular those two individuals? We're going to break this article down in just a minute, but I wanted to bring you this. Convicted ex-hedge fund manager advice to SBF on jail time: shave your head, deepen your voice, and listen to rap music. Now, this is Shkreli. This is a guy called Martin Shkreli. If you don't know this story, he was a hedge fund manager, ultimately lost a significant amount of money, amongst other things. Martin Shkreli, American former hedge fund manager. Shkreli is the co-founder of hedge fund Ella Capital, MSMB Healthcare, the co-founder and former chief executive of the pharmaceutical firm Retrofin and Turning Pharmaceutical, and the former CEO of the startup software company Golden Systems. Was founded in August 16th. In September 2015, Shkreli was widely criticized for obtained the manufacturing license to anti-parasitic drug Dapamine and raised the price from by 5,455%. This guy was an arsehole, I think is best to talk about. Now, it goes on to commit securities fraud in 2 counts and 1 count of conspiracy to commit securities fraud. Now, you might recognize those. There's also charges for Sam Bankman-Fried. He was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison and up to $7.4 million in fines. The civil case was then a further $64.6 million to be given to victims nationwide. So that kind of tells you the absolute potential of what it comes. Now, this article goes on to explain a little bit about kind of what he did. But the point here is the fact that ultimately he was sentenced to prison from committing those 3 offenses and fined a substantial amount of money. So Sam Bankman-Fried pleading not guilty probably doesn't bode incredibly well. What's going to happen also is we can, assume there's going to be some pretty heavy fines that come his way. So what is his end game? What is he trying to do? Like it says here, 2 senior co-workers, Alameda chief executive Caroline Ellison and FTX co-founder Gary Wang, have pleaded guilty to criminal charges, being slapped with civil and criminal charges alleging fraud and conspiracy. Now, what does it mean? Well, it means that ultimately they are cooperating fully with the government, which doesn't, again, bode well for Sam Bankman-Fried. The fact that the 2 people that he's trying to probably stitch up are ultimately setting out to bury him. And I think this is the really interesting part, that ultimately they are all going to turn on each other and all bring a giant stack of cards down, as none of them realistically want to go to prison. He says he has a plea not guilty in his first appearance at court, and the district court judge said Jeffrey Lichtman, an experienced defense lawyer in New York, it's clear that the government is not going to be using him to cooperate against them. So he's clearly working on something else. Why else would the government consent to a bail package for public enemy number 1? And I think, again, it's a really important factor that I think this is bigger than SBF. I think that his parents are involved. We know that his dad has had some dealings in terms of maybe some not too legitimate things in the past, but we know that there is a bigger part to go for. It says Bankman-Fried has been on the Bankman-Fried has been free on $250 million bond following his extradition last month from the Bahamas, where he lived in exchange. And based on Tuesday, Bankman-Fried's lawyers asked the court to keep confidential the identities of two people of considerable means who have agreed to help secure his bail. Now, a lot of people think this is Kevin O'Leary. We cannot obviously we can't say that for a fact. Now, this article goes on for a substantial long way. It talks a little bit about the civil complaint. And again, remember, he has got a number of complaints against him. Now, what's important and interesting here is Bankman-Fried was ordered to stay at his parents' house in home in Palo Alto, California. Condition of his release, he's also required to undergo drug and mental health counseling and refrain from any business transactions over $1,000. So they absolutely think that either A, he is a danger to himself, or more importantly, he is still up to no good. And I think it is point, we saw that the $685K that he managed to get out of Alameda, he's still up to no good. And I think this really sheds a light on the individual himself, that this isn't all just this kind of, quirkiness about him. There is much more to this. Once at $26 billion, now apparently 100,000 in his bank account. Again, it talks about John Ray, and again, that famous for that company Enron collapse. It says Ray's calculated called FTX collapse one of the worst business failures he has seen, complicated by an unprecedented lack of documentation. At the same time, Sam Bankman-Fried then goes on to say, well, this was the reason it collapsed, but he told a congressional committee that problems with FTX were a accumulation of months of years of company operating with little to no oversight. Literally, there is no record keeping whatsoever. A multi-billion-dollar company using QuickBooks. Is this the plan all along? Is this what Sam Bankman-Fried is banking on? And ultimately, there isn't going to be enough based on the lack of records. And the only thing he has is Caroline and Gary saying that yes, he did it, who have already agreed and already committed to criminal charges. This one's going to get messy. Court date set for October, so there's a long time between now and then. You're talking 10 months for all this to pan out and come out. But I think it's safe to say there's going to be some pretty heavy fines on a number of different people. And is SBF really going to go to prison? Well, time will tell on this one. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you think SBF should be in prison, and why do you think he pleaded not guilty? As ever, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with this story as it develops. And I'll see you guys in the next one.